This report is from Psychonautwiki, Talking to Ghosts by Salem. The date was 2012. The gender is male. He weighed 52 kilograms or 115 pounds. He was 21. The dose was 450 Datura seeds. His goal was a meditative supplement. His mindset was curious, anxious, and slightly depressed. It was a quiet night in a house in the middle of a large desert. Few neighbors, close family and home, and they were aware of the experiment. There was no TV or music, and the phones were off. I will try to recall the experience as best as I can, but it was incredibly powerful. I only wish words did it justice. There was so much more that can possibly be said here. This was amazing, horrible, scary, fascinating, annoying, uncomfortable, painful, and surreal all at once. This happened a few years ago. It is now January 2015, but I believe it is worth mentioning. I had been discouraged from recording the experience at the time by the fact that all the careful notes I had been taking during the experience turned out to be nothing but illegible scribbles, symbols, and crumpled notebook paper when I examined them the next day. I had previously been given 150 seeds by a friend who mistook them for morning glory seeds. This mistake could have been dangerous, but in the end I was shown the plant and properly identified it. I chose to take some seed pods home with me. With little bit of research online and the seeds themselves, I ended up finding what I believed to be a dose that would take me far, but wouldn't put me in the hospital or worse. Datura's potency varies 5 to 1, so I now always start with a very, very low dose and work up. I prepared 450 individually counted seeds, and finally grounded them into a coffee filter and tied a string around it so it resembled a closed tea bag. I dipped it into a pot of warm water for approximately 24 hours and agitated it every few hours. I discarded the seed bag, and I took the potion as the sun fell under the moon. This seemed appropriate because this plant had earned the nickname Moonflower. My brother came up for the weekend and wanted to try the experiment with me in the last minute. He was to be my sitter anyway, so I gave the okay. My brother was not made tea, but instead yogurt, so we could get on with the experience. For my brother, I prepared 150 finely ground seeds and sprinkled them into a yogurt mix. I had been fasting all day for the experiment. I do not know what he had to eat, but he weighed around 135 pounds at the time, I believe. It might have been better for him to start at 50 to 100, but I gave him 150 because he insisted he really wanted to feel it. I began feeling the effects of the potion before I was done drinking it. Granted, it took me about 15 minutes to finish it because it tasted so foul, but most potions for the mind taste bad. I find it's almost a rite of passage in my eyes. Still, this kicked in notably fast when compared to my other Datura experiences. My brother had a much easier time downing his yogurt mix. I find even with a scientific and rational mind, I enjoy the ritualistic aspect of these experiences, so I try to be as serious about it as I could. This was an exploration of the mind, not a recreational intoxication. About 15 to 20 minutes after downing the potion, I was already feeling very, quote-unquote, drunk and distended from my body. I hadn't even stood up yet from my original seat. I was just battling nausea. I had been fighting an incredible urge to purge since the first sip, and considering the sheer intensity of the confusion I was facing, I was abandoning the idea that I was going to peacefully meditate myself into another plane of thought. I didn't even make it to the bathroom. I purged right into the back of the pot I had prepared my brew in before I even got a chance to stand up. I might be paranoid, but I think this may have saved my life. I faded out of memorable consciousness after stumbling into the bathroom. Time doesn't make any sense. The notes I am writing don't seem to want to form together coherently. I am very confused and uncomfortable. My stomach doesn't hurt anymore, which makes it much easier to think clearly, but I still feel very drunk, and my skin feels incredibly sharp. I'm shaking and I don't know why. It hurts to touch anything that's not completely smooth or soft. Touching anything with my hands or arms sends sharp pins and lightning bolts up my nerves. I think my throat is swelling up, and I am compulsively drinking water to ensure it doesn't close. I am swallowing nothing constantly just to ensure I can still swallow. Trying to breathe through my nose is easier. My throat might just be numb and not swollen, but I can't tell. I fade out again. I wake up sitting in the dark, apologizing to my blanket for being so intoxicated. I don't know how I got here. I am more self-aware now, but cannot think clearly as I seem to genuinely think that my blanket is my ex-girlfriend who had deflated into a pile of self-aware skin and muscle. Due to the disappointment she felt, she had always disapproved of my studies and claimed I was always just trying to get high. She lays there, crumpled on my bed and staring at me disapprovingly. With a morose look on her face, I hold her for a while and apologize more. I fade out. I decided to try to take a shower. I believe this was irresponsible and dangerous. It should have been obvious to me because the room was spinning, and I found it very difficult to walk, or function at all for that matter. My legs just give out underneath me, and I fall into the hallway over and over, stumbling to find my placement. I fade out on my knees, staring at the carpet. This fade seems to happen to me quite a bit. I was slipping in and out of consciousness. With Datura, I still seem to function while I'm out, as opposed to the more familiar nod associated with opiates. With an opiate, I wake right up where I faded out, but with Datura, I wake up in a room I don't remember walking into, in the middle of doing things, or talking to people in contexts that don't make any sense, similar to a drunken psychosis. I woke up in a mid-sentence realizing I was talking to no one, but aware I had been talking for at least 5 minutes prior. I wonder who I must have been talking to. Could it have been my brother? I then realized I am naked. Shortly after that, I realized I am in the shower with water running down my face. I had been talking to no one. This was very interesting to me. I wonder what could have possibly caused me to slip in and out of worlds like this with no real recollection of what I had been doing prior, or at least why I was doing it. I fade out again and wake up standing in the hall with a sober brother of mine. Third brother, asking me a question. I don't remember what I said or what the question was, but he told me the next day that I had answered him coherently, even though the answer had nothing to do at all with the question. While I was in the shower, the brother that had joined me on my adventure had woken my grandmother out of her sleep. It was about 2 a.m. to inform her that the flower truck was outside. Again, we live in the middle of nowhere. No flower truck, no neighbors, and it's not even daytime. I don't believe he saw a flower truck, but I do think he genuinely believed it was there when he told her. I wake up again in mid-sentence. I am in my room and having a conversation with some cat-in-the-hat slippers that I apparently placed on my bed, so the faces faced me, I guess so that they could pay attention to me. I reached over to use my laptop to play some music and nothing was there. I didn't have a laptop. Why did I think one was there? I am still confused. My skin still tingles painfully and my throat is still sore and closed at this point. This fade in, fade out theme happened many more times, and every time I woke up talking to an inanimate object or someone that wasn't there, sometimes still genuinely believing that the clock would understand what I was saying. This was a very mind-orientated experience, not classically psychedelic at all. The visuals are light but unique. Jagged changes in my environment take place throughout the trip when the room isn't spinning. Corners and walls bend and shake quickly, then go back to normal like something out of a horror movie. When the director flashes something weird on the screen for a few times and it goes away as fast as it arrived, it is the closest thing I can compare it to. Parts of a chair shaking against its own structure in a way that should break it but doesn't, for example. Probably an even better analogy would be to compare it to a fast glitching 3D video in a game model. I've seen nothing like it in any other entheogens. I finally have to give in to the drowsiness that has been chasing me through the entire night. I go to bed shaking because I feel cold, but I wasn't. Everything I touch still feels like razors cutting into my skin, and I will continue drinking water every 3 minutes throughout the entire night while I am awake. I hear, while trying to lay in bed, auditory hallucinations that sound ominous and far away. Nothing to understand really. It seems like old trees moaning and whining in the distance, maybe as a way of communicating to each other. The language of the trees, I think, and I slip off to sleep easily enough. I wake up with a hangover the next day. I would never do this again for many reasons. I'm glad, however, that I was able to experience it. I wish I could remember more of it. Even reading this wall of text, it doesn't seem to properly convey to you the experience. The weird almond taste in my mouth. The strange noises and thoughts didn't seem to be my own, etc. Hours of adventure condensed into a few short paragraphs. I believe this was an irresponsible dose, and I had not understood the dangers of going so far in. I might just be paranoid, but I didn't know the seeds could be as toxic as they can be during the time of ingestion, or I would have not gone in too deep. It was poor research on my part. I would recommend the experience itself, but I ultimately would never recommend the dosage I took. With responsibility and caution, it could be quite the experience, but I wouldn't expect it to be fun.